All right, we are live. BlazePod Nation, welcome. We are Strech Affect. This is Team Strech Affect. We wanted to welcome everyone this post July 4th holiday. I'm sure everyone's excited to do exercises this morning, first thing. But we are going to learn a little bit in addition to do some movements and things. So we got some people joining. We're going to give some time to get people on board here. We're kind of going to show you the facility a little bit. So we'll kind of tour you guys around. There's the iconic sign that everyone loves. We have a kind of private treatment room back here, just for those that prefer the less than open space. We got our beautiful rig that kind of has all the fun stuff when it gets into, make sure I don't die here, getting into all the high level performance stuff. And then we also really pride ourselves on some of the recovery things that we do here. So as you follow me over here, we got athlete recovering in there, working hard as he does. And then we also have our infrared sauna, some cardio space for everyone to warm up on. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Beautiful Tuesday morning. So this morning we're going to be talking about kind of dynamic movement with the BlazePods, which we love engaging with. We love the way that they incorporate dynamic reactive components of training, which essentially transfer over to high-level performance athlete activities. And that's one of the things that we can miss sometimes with our training, and we got to get the cognitive components of that to be able to fully deliver integration. Here, we like to talk about movement health as a whole. So we have a continuum of sorts here that involves breathing, mobility, stability, endurance, strength, power, performance. That's where everyone wants to live. And then fundamentally recovery throughout all those aspects. And what you'll see is how we use BlazePods to take somebody from a very low level activity all the way up to high level activity. Hey everybody, we're getting them going here. Slowly the count's going up. Good morning everyone. All right. One by one. And growing. How's it going? Saying what's up to everybody. All right. So here we're going to kind of switch the camera around here. All right, so you're going to see a setup down here today that we're going to go over, and it's a dynamic Gluteus Medius burnout. And this is going to be the exercise that we're going to share with you guys today. You got it?
It's stuck.
Is it stuck? You got it? Technical difficulties?
Okay. There we go. We're back.
All right,
We're back.
Technical difficulties 101. But what you'll see down here is a setup for this, and this is all going to be relative to the athlete, which we find to be very imperative with this. And we're going to showcase how we kind of deliver this. As a whole here, we like to engage this because of all the lateral movement components and lateral power and the weaknesses there within. So we spend a lot of time focusing on, exercises and what they mean and what they do. So when we look at how important this little muscle can be, when we talk about knee, hip, and lower back injuries or pain is a really big one. And then we got to look at, all right, so if that's a weak area that somebody may have, and it's important for high-level activity, what are the exercises we should be doing to maximize our potential, ultimately? So this is essentially a CKC clamshell, which has about 103% activity. So it has by far the most activity. So that's why we chose this, because this position in itself will put you at the best chance to be the strongest that you can possibly be. And then when we talk about adding the BlazePods and the dynamic reaction component to it, fundamentally, we're going to transfer that over to high-level activity. And so, I'm going to have Mr. Nick here. We're going to switch, and he's going to talk about a little anatomy, show you guys what you're working with so you understand what you should be feeling, okay?
So the big muscle we're trying to target with this exercise is Gluteus Medius. That's why we call it the Gluteus Medius burnout or dynamic burnout exercise. So It's this wee little guy here, as Kyle mentioned earlier, in the muscle. Not actually that wee. It's covered by, as you can see, most of it's covered by the gluteus maximus, and then we have access to it right up here in his upper thirds. I like to think of it as the deltoid of the hip, right? Has multiple fibers that are starting from your iliac crest, going down to your greater trochanter of your femur, and we think about it as a hip abductor, abductor, meaning it brings the leg away from the body, right? So we'll give a little demo here when it comes up. Now, that's not our biggest concern as an athlete, is it needs to be working in closed chains, so such as cutting or moving laterally, okay, in the frontal plane. Glute medius is gonna help stabilize the pelvis, so if it's not active or activating, you'll see the hip do this, right? And it becomes inactive. Another little fun fact of the glute medius is one of the muscles that gets inhibited the most. So if we have tight adductors, that can inhibit glute med. Or if we stand on one hip like this, you see people, moms and stuff, holding their babies, or dads holding their beers, right? That's gonna inhibit the glute med too, and then we need it to function, it's not going to. So we've designed a great exercise to not only get the maximum voluntary contraction out of it, but also challenge it dynamically. So if we look at the video here, this is one aspect of what the gluteus medius does when we're in open chain, okay? It just goes out and in like this. Cool, all right. But what happens when the foot's planted on the ground? We're gonna show you a little bit more in this exercise.
So now we're going to get little... Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit into this movement itself. So when we look at this, we want to look at application first. So what we're going to get is Dr. Evan Jeffries to talk about specific instances with lateral cutting that make this a very important fundamental component of exercise and training.
You may know him as TikTok Mobility Doc.
Hey guys, TikTok Mobility Doc here. I didn't get the memo, so I am wearing gray and not the black outfit here. But one of the biggest things that, especially what Nick was talking about, is just the stabilization when the leg is on the ground, right? So being able to stabilize that pelvis and not let it drop. And that's so important for athletes, especially basketball players. And this is a nice article about Steph Curry and how many ankle injuries he was having because his hips and his core wasn't strong enough. So you can see his hip kind of collapses there, and then his ankle sprains right there. So one of the most important things is the foundation, right? Like, how do we get that closed change position to get strong in that position so that you make your explosive movements and you're able to drive that hip without it collapsing in, right? So a lot of my athletes, if it's especially basketball players, you're trying to drive your leg in this way, and that hip collapse. You got knee issues, ACLs, right? You can sprain your ankle pretty easily in this position. And then now with the game, how it's changed so much to that European style and the Euro step, you see a lot of ACL injuries because of the glute med, and when you're doing that Euro step, not being able to stabilize on that hip and collapsing in. And as you fatigue throughout the game, right, when you get from the first quarter to the fourth quarter, that muscle becomes kind of fatigued-ish over time. And so some of this foundational stuff that we're going to kind of go over today is so important to kind of work on endurance and strength with that muscle so it can translate to the game.
All right, beautiful. All right, so we're going to get a demonstration going here for you guys. So the setup is one of the most important things because it's relative to the athlete. So they're going to lay on their side, and we already got this mapped out for Nick, but fundamentally we're going to line up with his feet. We're going to line up with a reach from his leg at his knee height, arm width, and then at his head. And so these are going to be the different positions relative to the height of your athlete that you're going to coordinate with. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the exercise itself, and then we're going to talk about some progressions, regressions there within. Now, let's showcase it first, and then we'll kind of coach through it. So he's moving quick here. This is going to be with some distracting colors, so he's got to really pay attention. He's got to really keep his eye on the prize, if you will. He's got to be focused, and it's all fundamentally distracting him from the goal, which is getting his glute medius endurance built up. And what we're doing is we're forcing him to be somewhat engaged, which is a great part for a coach. It's a great part for an athlete because now what we're going to look at is we're going to see, okay,
Oh, yeah.
on here, we got 36 hits, his average reaction time, and then we're going to store this for him as an athlete, and then we're going to be able to go through and see his progression over time, specifically with this. Now, what did you feel there, Nick?
I felt bottom side hip pretty specifically right here.
Yeah, very localized.
And localized, yeah.
Right? So let's get him back in that position. Let's talk kind of through some of that from a coaching perspective. So there's a lot of potential faults here and a lot of compensations that can take place. So before we actually bring anybody up and load them, we always want to cue them and make sure their inter-abdominal pressure is there, and that we're going to look at that lumbar spine alignment so that he could be in like more of a flexed C-curve position, which we do not want, or an extension, which we also do not want. So we're going to have that neutral pelvis, and then we're going to check and make sure he has that intra-abdominal fill. Once he does that, we're going to cue him to use the ground to elevate his body. So he's going to push the ground away, and from this, he wants to use his full palm, hand down, pushing forward so that he gets post-cuff engagement, and then we want to drive down through the knee so that we're focusing on this bottom hip. And what we're not doing is we're not laterally flexing. From here, we're going to elevate this, and this is essentially the higher level progression. Big one here to make sure that people are not feeling TFL. That's the big one here. Want to make sure on the top leg they're also feeling the glute area, but this is going to focus on this bottom hip as an exercise as a whole. From this, then we're going to cue the lights, and he's going to have to dynamically moving. It's almost like a perturbation of sorts. And he's already getting...
There you go. Take a breather there,
Just all
buddy.
right there.
You got to be a better model. But ultimately, it's endurance for this muscle that we need. And so when we put in this fun, engaging aspect, and so let's talk about progressions and regressions fundamentally. It's quality over quantity, so we want to focus on the quality of the movement. Sometimes we get a little excited, and that's why we refer to this as foundations for lateral explosive movement, because we want to do the super high level stuff. We want to do the cutting and the running and all of that. But if we don't build a foundation for ourselves first, then it's going to be a hard ask for that to transfer over at a high level and for duration. And so we want to make sure that as a foundation that you have a solid activation, that you have solid endurance, and we don't have to worry about it being inhibited or anything, so that we have a strong base to drive off of. And so with Nick here, let's go ahead back down here and let's talk about some regressions. So easy things to do here are just stay down. So all he has to do is maintain core position, right? He can maintain an intention of pushing down with this leg to drive some activation, and we can still work the lights, okay? From here, all he has to do is he could come up just a little bit onto his, just his knees stacked, elevated, okay? And you'll see a lot of people are doing this with their clamshells and those types of things. But if we look back at that activation, we know that these are going to be lower activation exercises, but good progressions to start with. From here, he could then start to raise this leg, right? So now he's up in this position, but we can bring him up even higher. So we can bring the arm up so that he's extended away from the ground. So he's got more motion. We could extend the legs out also through here. So he's stacked up super high. Now this one we got to watch out for, make sure he has good core integrity here. Otherwise he's going to get into knee and side bending. And we got to make sure that he has some good scapular control as well. Go ahead and come on down. So we want to make sure everything's stacked in alignment with the joints with all of those. And so this exercise can really be the beginning of all the fun, crazy exercise that we can do with BlazePods, right? Which right now they're on sale, which is like, get that sale for sure, because saving money on these cool things. And what we found as coaches and clinicians and as a facility as a whole is it brings in a ton of engagement with all of our members. We run these exercises for our athletes. We run these exercises for our regular, everyday, entrepreneurs, executives, those types of people, because they're engaging. And so we'll do monthly challenges and things like that that engage with these, and people look up at the board and they see where they're at relative to everybody else. It also gives us a ton of feedback for progressing a client over time, right? If you have somebody 1, 2, 3 times, you show them an exercise, that's fine. We see our athletes for duration, so we see them, for ongoing basis. And so we want to keep people fun, engaging, and be able to do high-level activities. So let's go ahead and let's demo this again one more time for everybody so we can see what we're working with.
Yeah, I would add to that too, just gamifying an exercise, right? So we've all been gone to PT or been given our clamshells, or maybe we've even been given the side plank. You add the BlazePods in, and now it's a game. So now you're trying to stabilize. You're trying to better your score each time. You're able to track progress. So for our clients, it's like, all right, we take a boring exercise or a traditional exercise, and then we just add the BlazePods in, and then now it becomes something fun, and then they actually maybe even look forward to it or seeing if they can better their score.
Make it unpredictable, right?
Right. It's unpredictable each time. It's going to be a little bit different.
All right, so let's see what he's got this time. He had 36 last time. Let's see where he's at.
Coaching.
Uh-oh. He's got to use the ground, keep the core.
Let's go. Starting to stab in.
And as we get distracted, we forget all of
Yeah.
those things. Uh-oh.
Watch those
He's
ribs.
cheating.
Watch those ribs.
It's the fourth quarter.
Come on.
You made me do ISOs before.
I did. So pre-fatigue, right? Pre-fatigue's another one.
Oh.
Countdown.
Ribs, 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 ribs.
Oh, he missed that last one. Otherwise, he would have got 37. He would have got 37. It's that fourth quarter shot, though.
There we go.
Okay, so then let's talk about how we also. So this is something that Nick and the guys here came up with, and it's a concept of progressing with the BlazePods. So there's natural progressions with exercises that I think a lot of us understand on how to progress an exercise and what that looks like. But then this would be in addition to that, looking at the simplicity of an all at once with the BlazePods, going into something focused with the BlazePods, and understanding how that is a more challenging aspect to each one of these exercises. So we've developed this kind of system, if you will, of integrating BlazePods with super high level exercise progressions. So for this one is a single leg stance, for example, which is a higher level version that we would progress someone to, where they would go into a stagger stance, a tandem stance, a single leg stance, and then we would be doing that on a stable surface, unstable surface, or resisted. And so those are all different components that we can build in or bake in to the progressions with the athletes, with our clients, and use the BlazePods to engage with that. Now, have we had any questions, or is there anybody coming through on anything? Let's see if we can flip that around and see. There we go. All right, I'm not really sure here on this side.
Oh, sorry.
More people wanted to join. Questions. Okay. I think we got. All right, so just
fireworks.
yeah, so people are talking about fireworks. Is great. So when do you progress someone to the next level is a good question. So when we talk about this, we want to make sure that we're looking at being competency first. So understanding that someone complete, for us, we want to argue at least 30 seconds on here. We would progress them up to 1 minute and then see if they can still maintain for that activity. And then also in the exercises, understanding if they had to, if we're pre-fatiguing, if we're integrating this into a training session, so it's not just an isolated exercise.
Is their activity.
And right,
What's their
exactly.
sport? So if their sport's more of an endurance sport where they have to call on those glute medius over time, you're probably going to take them into more of a aerobic type of set or training stimulus. Whereas if it's a sprinting athlete, it's a field athlete, they're sprinting 7 seconds and then running in between bouts. You want to focus more on what they're doing, the quality of it, and the difficulty within each set, but perhaps you have more sets. So it's all dependent on the individual athlete.
Yep. And then when you want to talk about doing this, so if it's something that is inhibited, you would want to do this as maybe a quick activation drill prior to activity, but not doing those longer durations. If you're doing it in a corrective rehab setting, you just want to make sure that you're doing it with enough rest in between sets. You're understanding that the body's trying to learn and adapt. It's not at that high level application yet where you're integrating it with a training for duration, 30 minutes into a workout, those types of things. Those are all going to be very important things to understand.
I'd say also, speaking about rest, so between sets, so a lot of times when we're resting between sets, we're just going to go and do the other side. with this exercise, we're actually getting glute med on both the bottom and the top leg. So the bottom leg is going to be more challenged, but the top leg is also getting fatigued. So if we flip over and do the other side, they're going to be like, man, I'm not as good on this side. Well, they are already just working that side. So you want to think about maybe giving that 30-second rest between, even if you're flipping over sides, because it's getting some fatigue on the top leg as well. That's okay. If you want that, if you want to fatigue, maybe your aim is to do the right glute med. Like they're having imbalance, they're always standing on that leg. So maybe we would start with left leg down. They're getting some pre-fatigue on the top leg, and then you put them onto that right side, and then they're going to really fatigue it out. So a little bit of activation there too. So you might want to even think about that as challenging which side and which one you're going to do first.
And then we got, like, where can I get them, Costa Rica? Definitely check the website. They got that sale going on today, which is beautiful. Ship them right out to you for sure. The new app is great because we can create all of these exercises for our clients, and we can share them so that they can use them at home. They can make sure that they're engaging with the same level of training when they're in the clinic with us as they are when they're on the road or traveling. And so they just take a set of these with them, and they have all their pre-prescribed exercises that we built for them in the app, which has been beautiful for us. I think overall, we just need to understand that BlazePods, they change the way that you can do dynamic and reactive drills and training for athletes in a non-sport environment, which is beautiful for us as coaches and clinicians to be able to create high-level application in a clinic, in a facility, and still send these on the road with our clients and our patients so that they can maintain and keep up, because we know it's all about what they do in between the times that they see us. So fundamentally, guys, we want to say thank you so much for joining us today. We had a beautiful time. The team at Strech Affect here appreciates you. Say goodbye. Say goodbye.
Thanks, guys.
All right. And be sure to check in. There's going to be more of these spotlights coming. Thanks, guys. See ya.